What have you found effective in terms of lead generation sources? Because I know we can spend a fortune, on online lead generation and even direct mail companies, but in terms of cost-benefit analysis, where are you putting your effort and resources to generate leads?
Well, I think, it depends on where you are in your business, what you're doing, and what works and what doesn't work. When I first started, I generated leads the old-fashioned way from two sources. One was working your sphere of influence, and I'm sure you've all heard that term 1,000 times and you already know what it means, but there is nothing more effective than that. And the biggest challenge when you start this business is going from being, say, little Kimmy's mommy to being realtor pro, or from being best tire salesman to being realtor pro. And how do you convince your sphere of influence that you're there to do the job and you know what you're doing? And it's a hard thing to do. So, but that's the first place I would start. Is everybody I know. How do I know them? Get a letter out to them, and enlist their help. That your referrals will mean a lot to me. And you'd be surprised. There are a lot of people in this world who are real helping types, and they will actually respond to that. So, that's just so old-fashioned. So that's when I first started. I worked that, and the other thing that got things rolling for me. Well, and this is like you said. There's 1,000 different ways to even get started. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate enough when I started that I worked for a builder for 6 months and sold new homes in a certain neighborhood. So that gave me an automatic target to farm. Maybe you don't want to start your career working in homes, but it is a really good way to get a lot of training in a hurry and a lot of contacts in a hurry with people who are eventually going to want to sell their house. Because I don't care what you do in this business, if you're not listing property, you're not going to generate leads. Mm-hmm. To me, lead generation comes from listings, and you've got to build those up. And who wants to trust their house with a brand newbie, right? So I think that what you have to do is start to demonstrate to those people and to an area that you decide you're going to farm that you are the one that knows that area, that turf, no matter what. And that's how I began lead generation when I was brand new. There are different things that you do as you progress in the business, but
as new things become available, right? Because back in the day, we didn't have Zillow and Trillia and Remax.net and all those kinds of things. So I think identifying your own personal style is important. It helps you to determine what path you're going to take to develop your business, whether it's lead generation or marketing or what have you. So there's going to be some of us that are more prone to or more attracted to the volume prospect of being able to farm for leads on some of these websites. So whether you subscribe to them or what have you, there's going to be a personality that likes that. You can do a volume of work in a short period of time. You might have a lot of hit and miss, but there's some planned synchronicity to that. Personally, I'm more with flow. I think my business has grown in large part due to personal connections. So every time there's a personal connection, Brenna spoke earlier about belonging to a Bronco group. So that's a built-in part of her sphere. Mm-hmm. These are people that know her well. Look at your past career experiences, your past, your background, and think about other professionals that you've networked with and what have you. Those are people that will help you build your business. I remember, when our kids are playing sports and whatnot, then I sponsored teams and I was the one that brought the popsicles after the basketball game or whatever it was. I'm probably a little bit more subtle in my approach. Is that I didn't jump up and down and scream and yell, I'm a real estate agent. But rather, I made certain that when approached or when it was appropriate in a conversation to mention, I saw a house go on the market on your street the other day, da 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 da. And so I'm a little bit more soft in my approach. But if you have the background and if you have the know-how and if you have the information and you are an expert, that you'll have opportunities, whether subtle or more aggressive in your face, to demonstrate that. I also think that bringing subtle items of value to your sphere of influence is important. You don't, again, in my opinion, you don't need to jump up and down and say, I'm a real estate agent and you need to call me. You rather plant slow and steady seeds. And so again, in conversation at Bunko Group or what have you, you might mention, house that just sold or house that just listed. Those are a little bit more passive ways, but no less important. And quite frankly, give an opportunity for you to demonstrate knowledge without being too overt. And so a lot of this has to do with your own personal style, your own personality, and what suits you. Mine has always been very relationship driven. So.
Mine too, really.
Well, I have a question. How did you wear that poker face to convince people that you were the expert? Because I've gone up against 2 top agents for 2 really nice listings, and I don't have either one of them. And one of them was Mike Cedar, so all he had to do was say his name was Mike Cedar, and that kind of, knocked me for a loop there. I didn't know who he was, but they did. And how did you bluff your way through that you had that much expertise when you didn't?
Well, I guess I would say two things. Is that I don't bluff, and I don't use a poker face. I think you have to identify for yourself. You're branding yourself, right? So when I'm going to brand Jacci, I'm going to go in and identify, especially if I know perhaps who my competitors are, and even if I don't.
I didn't until after the sign go up.
What makes the services that I provide or the expertise that I possess unique in the marketplace? And I wouldn't presume that every client, and Mike Cedar's a tremendous agent, has a fantastic practice, we would all agree to that, but he won't suit everybody. So, a parallel to this might be, you are looking for the best CPA, or you're looking for the best attorney to represent you, or the best insurance agent, or any other professional that you might solicit for advice and opinion. And there might be 3 or 4 or 5 that are all outstanding in the marketplace, but only one is the right fit for you. So you have to presume that your consumer who's soliciting you for advice and opinions is going to filter the same way. They might well recognize that this agent might have more tenure, more experience, might have a higher volume of sales, but ultimately, maybe not necessarily the person that they want at their breakfast room table. So don't short yourself before you've even gotten in there. I would identify, if you're new to real estate, I would identify what skills you possess coming from other work experiences that make you unique, and develop and expand upon that. You got to be able to sell yourself. First of all, you have to be able to sell yourself before you can sell property. If you can't sell yourself, you'll never get the opportunity to sell somebody's property. In my
Fortunately
opinion.
for you, Brenda, you've got experience in other states, so you can come in with what's not a fib or anything else.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, just exactly what Jackie's saying, is you've got to touch that person as a person. And sometimes it's not easy to do. Sometimes I'll go and listing once and I know Jackie's probably done the same thing. And you already know halfway through the thing that you're not the right agent for them, because what
I've
they're
walked away
focused-
from those, actually.
Right, and what they're focused on is not where you want to be focused. In fact, Brenda and I went on a listing appointment together with this girl in Carlton Woods who wants not twice what her house is worth, but 3 times what her house is worth. And, it's kind of an odd property where she's decorated the very, very strongly Tuscan, so strongly Tuscan, it's not a thing that's going to appeal in the general marketplace. And we spent a lot of time with her listening to her ego trips the whole time over there. And I know, weren't you thinking the same thing I was there, is that I'm not even sure I want this listing, even if she
Well, I
was-
never thought that. I don't have 45 listings on the board. No, I wasn't thinking that.
But, and then other times, you'll go on a listing appointment and you'll meet a person, and I know for me personally, I have this competitive thing in me that I want to win, no matter what it is. And sometimes that's not such a good thing, and God has to work with me on that angle. But I at least want to know why I lost, So if I don't get a listing, I'm not shy about picking up the phone and saying, I'm really sorry, I was looking forward to working with you on this house, but and I see that it's on the market, already, and I want you to know I'm going to show it anyway. But is there something I could be doing better, or that maybe made you feel like we wouldn't work well together? And that's a hard conversation to have, but I would say sometimes you got to have those.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure out what you did that turned them off. I mean, sometimes you walk out there and you don't know why you didn't get it right. And sometimes, let's face it, you didn't listen. They wanted the cheapest realtor they could get, and you weren't willing to work for that price or something. But at least that's why you didn't get it. Rather than.
so. Next.
Don't be shy. I've got 16 million questions. I'm giving you guys a chance to get in here. Come
Maybe
on.
we ought to expand a little bit on lead generation, new
Yeah.
systems in place today. My experience is becoming that without listings, you can pay Zillow, you can pay Truella, you know, tried paying Fitzgerald's Coaching, spent
Mhm.
$5,000 and have not got one listing from it so far.
You and me both, sister.
Yeah, so I think we need to start writing some tough letters to
Mhm.
them. But
Yeah.
anyway, once you start getting some listings, I get leads, I'm showing property today and tomorrow, from Zillow leads, because, you know, just the fact that you're on Zillow and you happen to catch their eye. But are you paying extra for, I think I'm paying extra for Homes.com, but it's not really producing
I
anything.
never have,
Yeah,
I probably never will.
I'm
I-
rapidly reaching that point.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you that when you have listings, that generates organic,
Mhm.
you know, you're gonna advertise those properties, whether you advertise them electronically or print media or postcards or whatever, you know, whatever suits you. And so the key really is listings. Listings will generate activity for you. So, I'm not a big fan of paying to belong to any of these sites and then paying for the leads that are being generated on the listings that you have. So, you know, I think our Remax side is exceptional. HER brings organic leads you're not paying for. I'm not a big, you know, personally not a big fan. But then again, most of my business comes from current business, previous clients, referrals, and my relocation venture. So I'm just not, it's not anything that's ever appealed to me.
I
And
think
there's an
unfortunately,
anonymity
most
that I don't
experienced
think is.
agents are gonna say that, because in the
Yeah.
end, you spend your time where it's most, you know, productive, and that's gonna be with personal leads and personal contacts. But you gotta start somewhere, you know, so that's why I was talking about perhaps the idea, I mean, what I started with was really getting good informed. Let's just say that, I have a house that I know needs an open house, and any of you ever wanna hold an open house, come to me. Brenda and Kathy could be as busy as they want to in open houses all their life, but one way to start a farm is to, let's just say you were gonna sit in an open house, it's not even yours, or a builder's house. There's some builders, smaller builders out there who would love for some hosts just to sit there for a Sunday afternoon. Before you do it based on, this is a farm I wanna develop. Let's just say you wanted to be in Imperial Oaks. And I'll say this also, I think when you start, you gotta aim for those listings that maybe really experienced agents don't fight real hard to get, which is like a middle class neighborhood, 150 to 250 instead of, I mean, nothing wrong, and we all love to get the $600,000 listings, but the competition for those is horrific. Whereas the average Joe, average American,
Agreed.
you know,
Those are also the properties that turn over 2 to 4
that's
years.
right. So you get some income coming in right away. But so let's just say you decided you wanted to farm Imperial Oaks, the way I would do it today. Brenda's doing this in there, but the first question is, where do I live? Can I be effective where I live? And that means join every neighborhood group, go to the book club, go to Bonco, neighborhood walks and walk your dog. I mean, whatever, if wherever you live, you know is an area that you would like to be selling right now, prosperity. That's the first area to farm. So what do you do effective to start a farm? There's so many different ways to do it, but the thing I did, I walked the neighborhood and got the name and address and phone numbers and emails. Maybe people rather do emails today than phones, but of people who live there, and explain that I'm putting a directory. You know, that I've been checking, we haven't had a new directory in Imperial Oaks in 10 years, you know. So would you be interested in having the names and phone numbers and emails of your neighbors and also being on the list? And if they say no, we understand, I respect your privacy completely. A lot of us are really too busy to be interacting with our neighbors. But if this would be of interest to you, or do you have children who would like to babysit, or people who would like to house sit dogs, or boys who would like to be mowing neighbors' yards? I'm preparing a list for that along with this directory. And it gave you an excuse just to go out there and, I mean, meet the 50 people that you figure, out of 50 people, surely 2 of those people this year are gonna list their house. And when those 2 people list their house, The other big effective thing on the farm particularly, but all listings for that matter, is slap that sold sign just as soon as you've got an offer working. You know, now, if it's a neighborhood where you want a bunch of buyers from, you might not want to be quite in such a hurry to do it, because then you
Right.
get the leads from the sign even after the house is sold. But if you're developing the farm, you want to look effective in the farm, and a sold sign is what the most effective advertising you can do. So, then, let's say you are holding an open house. Brenda, tell them about your popcorn idea.
I stole this from another agent in the office, and he was quite willing to share. But it really does work, and he's had great success with it, and Kathy and I are doing pretty good with it too. But we go to Walmart and we get, for $5 you can get a 24-pack of popcorn, and Lisa prints us out some labels, and it says, pop on over to da-da-da-da-da address for my open house on Saturday. And we get out there and we hand out these popcorns, and it's amazing. I got a listing, and the guy said that he ended up just calling the office, not anybody in particular. I happened to have a floor, but he actually said that he had gotten a bag of Kathy's popcorn. So that was like a double. He didn't call her,
And you
but
make sure your card is stapled.
yes, your
Right.
card is on one side and the other thing is on the side, and your card's very easy to pull off.
And then, once you're doing that, work in this area, I mean, you get to the point, you know every single question there is about at least that neighborhood. Maybe you're not a pro all over Houston yet, but you know in Imperial Oaks, you know
Right.
when they have their subdivision meetings,
Yeah.
you know which schools the kids go to, no matter which one. You know exactly what's listed in that neighborhood. So then here's the next little tip, while you're in there and you've got the popcorn signs, the popcorn getting people in there, and you're advertising it, you know, on HAR, and you put a bunch of signs out. Pick a neighborhood, by the way, where you can stick a bunch of signs out for open houses if you want an effective open house. Some of these neighborhoods like the Woodlands where they steal your signs and won't let you have them, you're not gonna get as much traffic unless it's a really busy road. But anyway, once you get that neighborhood, open house going, then I take with me, I go to HAR and I go, okay, I'm holding an open house on a house that's 200,000. I'm gonna print out everything that's 175 to 250 with me, right? And make up little packets, make about 5 or 6 of them. There's 9 houses on the market in that neighborhood in the same general price range, or even a little higher or a little lower. Staple your card to the packets, and when they come in, and if this isn't the right house for them,
I can show you the one down the street.
yeah. And
Or
and
the
by
one
the
walk
way,
over.
are you? And of course, it's not as effective as it used to be, because now everybody goes on HAR and they can see everything. But there's still some turnip truck guys. They don't know how to go on HAR, and you'd be surprised. Just hand them that packet with your card.
Well, and even with all the data that's available electronically and all the sites people can go to, people still need guidance.
Yeah.
People still want advice and opinions. People still want, and then people want to talk about them, clients want to talk about themselves. They want to talk about their own needs, their own specifications, their own things that they're looking for. And so, quite frankly, who wouldn't prefer to have a personal shopper?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have no time to shop for clothes. I have a personal shopper that does my shopping for me, right? That's essentially what you are. So if you can identify yourself as being an expert in the area, this house isn't right for you, maybe this house doesn't fit, but there's 10 others in this neighborhood. I know you like the area, the kids can walk to school, there's a great park, so on and so forth. Is that, you identified right there, whether you pull it up on your iPad or whether you've created a packet as Phil suggested. Something for somebody to take away is always a good thing. So I do believe in the power of paper still. But you're identifying yourself as a resource. And I think that at minimum, somebody's walked away and they have something from you.
Not only that, it gives you the legitimate excuse the next day to call them and say, hey, did you drive by all those houses, and how many of those do you want to see? I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah, open houses, if you aren't registering people at your open house, you're missing an opportunity to start building a database too.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that if you can get email addresses, go ahead and set those people up on searches. They can always opt out.
Mm-hmm.
So set them up on searches. So, hey, it was really great to meet you. It's my open house at 123 Cherry Street. I've set up a search for you to send you some other similar properties in the area that we discussed, yada, yada, yada. Again, they can always opt out. But you're providing them something of value. You're not screaming up and down, beating them up. They can opt out. So
I used to think, and I still do this, not as good as I used to be, but I kept a little spiral notebook in my purse. And if I got a name, and they actually gave me their phone number and their email address, I write their name down, what they're looking for, put it on the spiral notebook that's with me at all times in my purse. And of course, you can do this on your phone now. It's just I'm old-fashioned, but I like the visual thing of looking at the thing. And so let's say I've given somebody a packet, and the next day I call them and say, "Did you drive around and look at those?" Well, we did, but my husband's not sure he's gonna get the raise. We don't know. Maybe, we're not sure if we're gonna buy right now or not. Well, that I was taught there's A, B, and C leads, same as you, I'm sure. And A lead is somebody who's gonna buy in the next 30 days, no matter what. A B lead is somebody who's gonna buy if the husband gets the raise. If you stay in touch with him, you might still get it. And a C lead is somebody who really has got credit problems and not gonna buy in the next year or two, probably. So, you figure out which those are. And then if it's an A or a B lead, I would use the excuse, let's just say that house, that farm that I sat in, a new home comes up on the market in 2 days. Now's my excuse to call old BJ back. Hey, I noticed there's a brand new listing in Imperial Oaks in your price range. Did you notice it on her? Or like you say, if you're sending them out the automatic thing, this is a time saver. We all depend on it more as we get in the business. But when you're brand new, you're just looking for an excuse to call them as their friend that wants to help them find a house, right? So then once that person would buy, I'd put a big check mark on it, and I'd just feel good as I flew through, but there's a check mark. Or I'd put a big X. If they're a dead lead and I know it, and then it's not going anywhere, put a big X so that, but to me, it's just visual motivation, little things you can do to encourage yourself. And only you know what is the motivation. I mean, a board, my life is something with a board. I keep a board up so I know how many listings I have, how many closings I've got, what's impending right now. Number one, it does help real quick when you got a big team, we can keep up with it. But even before I had a team, I did it because it was a visual reminder to me that I've only got 2 pendings. I better double check on everybody that's shown my listings and see why they haven't bought them and what suggestion they might have to do something different to make this listing sell. Sometimes there's nothing you can do, right?
That's right. It's a good transition probably though into systems. I'm sure Flo would agree with me too, is that I run a business. I'm not a real estate agent. I run a real estate practice. So I work 8 to 6 or 7, routinely 5-6 days a week. I'm very scheduled, I'm very systematic, I'm very routine. I come to the office every day, I start my day from here, I might be out in the field the rest of the day, but I'm running a business. And I think that's the best piece of advice I can give anybody that's starting, is be very systematic. So when Flo talks about her checks and her X's and all that, what she's really talking about is building a business system. So whether you're tracking your potential contacts or whether you're refining your database, is look at the systems that you're prepared to use and be consistent with them. So whether it's a database management software, Top Producer, Act, or something like that, the more attentive you are to refining your database, qualifying and quantifying leads, and creating action plans around them, systems that you're prepared to use every day and be consistent about it. I have talked to agents all around as I go to different seminars and conventions and whatnot, and you can talk to an agent who's in practice 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they don't pay attention to their database. They just put a new contact in, and a new contact in, a new contact in, but they have no system for follow-up. So when your client's been in that house 3 years or 5 years, you don't think that they need something new, or they're ready, or they make more money, or they've got another kid, or that's a potential listing and a potential sale. So develop systems that give you your own intrinsic opportunity. People forget, I think agents forget, and they grow and they don't continue to work their database. Don't wait for a previous client or a previous contact or a bunco friend to call you. Get them in your database, build a system, whether you're including them in your mail-outs or your e-newsletter or something like that, or whether you're sending them an anniversary card of the time that they closed with you 3 years previously or what have you. But be very diligent about mining those contacts. Because again, I think we tend to check that off. It's sold, okay, and then we forget about it.
Are either of you doing anything with e-marketing in terms of specifically email? Are you emailing either to prospective clients or to your sphere?
Both.
And I'm not really, I
Yeah.
wish I could say I was effective with that, but I do have a system where I send a little card out once a month to everybody who's ever bought a house from me that's still living in the same house. Right now it's a Texas joke card, but it's just something so they know I'm still alive.
Which at this age is, right.
That's the same thing that, people have asked me through the years, is it effective to advertise on grocery carts? Well, to me, It's the lazy lady's way out, because it does remind people that knew you 10 years ago that you're still in there hacking it, because they go to the grocery store and they see your picture, and that's all that that's for. It's not for generating new business. Nobody's gonna call the person on the grocery cart if they haven't met you already and worked with you, but it's a way to stay in touch with old customers, and it's an expensive way, but it's very, very, it's not very labor intensive. And
It's about visibility.
yeah, right, so. Jackie is a wonderful person for systems. Flo flies out of the seat of her pants more. I think it depends on loyalty of customers. I mean, that is what will get you there eventually. But I mean, I guess my other advice to a new agent is make sure that you can afford to be a realtor, because the first 6 months to a year, you're probably going to barely make what you're spending. You know, I mean.
Well, I think it's even longer than that.
Pardon?
I would suggest it's longer than that. I'd say
I would
12 to
agree
18
with
months.
Jackie.
Yeah, I would say 12 to 18 months. Probably.
Yeah, maybe that long. It didn't take me that long, but I think it's because I had the new home experience, and I was able to jump in there and start getting listings.
Well, the market's more competitive these days.
That's
too,
true.
right?
That's true.
But I want to circle back to something that Flo had said earlier, and when we talk about our market, you know, we're Remax the Woodlands and Spring, and everybody loves the Woodlands, and I'm sure most of us live here too. But there is there's a lot to be said about the communities and developments that are on the periphery of us. And I would agree with her as well, is that in terms of price point, that, you know, probably 150 to 300, you know, the affinity there is probably the young family. And that demographic is one that's going to move more frequently than. So we're starting to see a little bit of stagnancy in some of our upper echelon price points. And I think that comes from the fact that people hit a certain station in life, age, what have you, or the kids are going to, you know, and they stay. And so you don't have as much turnover. So what I would suggest to anybody kind of starting in practice today is kind of a combination of what Flo suggested, and I've got a couple of ideas myself. Make sure you're familiar with new home construction and new home availability and new developments. And, you know, if you look at a new development, you know, there's a handful of them down Gosling right now, kind of around Auburn Lakes and whatnot. You know, anybody who buys any agent who buys a new home in a new development automatically becomes the expert in less. Okay?
Yeah.
Develop relationships with new home salespeople. Become, you know, offer to do those open houses at their models. Become even if you don't live in the neighborhood, become the expert on that development. You'll get to know people who move into new neighborhoods. Go to the models all the time. They drag their husband back in to see, remember what the color they painted the master bathroom in the model? Or I love those chairs. You will get to know, it's a really wonderful source, because people that are new to a neighborhood don't know anybody else either. Okay? And so if you can, that's an automatic easy farm opportunity, a really, really easy farm opportunity. The other thing is, as I said, the price range. So if you've got young kids, you know, you want to be, you know, you've got a direct affinity or relationship with somebody in that demographic. Some of those areas, again, on the periphery of the Woodlands, are going to be attractive to young families. And this is just a really wonderful source, because you will grow your practice along with them as they grow, as they move up in price range, as you move up in experience. But they don't tend to be as, I don't know, particular persnickety, and I'm just following your lead there. Is that how did you convince that you're worthy? Younger folks, quite frankly, are pretty savvy consumers in terms of gathering information. They've been to all the websites. They know what Trulia says and Zillow says and so on and so forth. So then they're really just looking for somebody to help them with the mechanics of a transaction. I think they kind of know what they want, right? They're less service demanding probably than a more sophisticated consumer. So they're really just looking for somebody to help them with the mechanics of the rest of it, how they get their financing done, their inspections, all those kinds of things. They've already kind of shopped, or they already kind of know, or they're really, you know, they want to gather their own information. So it's kind of a good hybrid blend, I think, for somebody who's starting new, is to focus on some of those younger families, young couples.
And you know, if you just need a buyer this week, this is what I did. And I mean, I did it even after I'd been in business a little while. If things were really slow on a certain weekend and I wanted to buy her that weekend, I would go to a model park where they're getting so much traffic that the new home salespeople cannot even keep up. I mean, they got more people walking through the door, and they're in there writing a contract, and they're saying hi, pick up a flyer, and I mean, that's the end of it. I would hang out and those things, and believe me, the new home sales people don't mind, because they would like someone to glean that buyer back into it, but I would learn that neighborhood totally. I would know what resales are available in that neighborhood in the same price range. And then it's a really busy Sunday afternoon, just, you know, as the people are sort of walking out and say, hi, I'm so-and-so with Remax of Woodlands and Spring, and I do a lot in this neighborhood, and I just wondered if you had any questions for me. I noticed the hostess was really busy. I mean, you know, it's a free world, and you'd be surprised, and then I would say, and then they say, well, you know, the model, we can just tell it's gonna cost too much for extras, and we're just getting decorating ideas really, but I said, well, you know, there's a resale down the street that's already finished, and it's a good that lasts such and such. I mean, I would know the bargains in that neighborhood. If I could get them in my car and go see that house, that's what we would do, and again, you establish the rapport while you're walking to the house with them, and find out what they're really after, and they really just want this elementary school, but this is what they can afford. Well, let me research and see what I come up with for you guys. When are you gonna have some free time to look again? I mean, it's just, there are leads laying on the ground out there. You go out there and just, you know, put them in fire. The other thing is, I really am a believer in, wear your name bag all the time. I mean, you go to the grocery, good old Brenda, she's doing it, and, you know, you go to that ladies tennis league or whatever, you're taking off your jacket, putting on your tennis clothes, but they saw that badge. I've always had my name on the side of my car forever and ever and ever, because I feel like that's a moving billboard, and it tells the world I'm there. And
I don't do that because I have a web foot.
yeah, I was wondering how many people I pissed off, but at least they'll remember me.
You do drive better when your car is brand new.
Oh, yeah, much better. Oh, go ahead.
Smile, smile.
What else?
Jackie, you mentioned that you are emailing. What do you email that people don't opt out of or consider spam?
You know, I create a monthly newsletter, and I've been doing this for a long time, and when I started it, I used a canned product that was available. I know HAR has a newsletter that you can utilize too, and now it's just much more customized. So it includes, you know, houses that we've recently listed or sold, but it includes community information and you know, tidbits and contractor recommendations and things like that. So I usually have some sort of item of value there attached as well, and it's just been very effective. I had a event in my house recently. I do a lot of client entertainment. And I had an event in my house just recently last week, and I heard somebody tell somebody else who's a new client and probably hasn't gotten a newsletter yet, oh, wait till you get Jackie's newsletter, it's just the greatest. So you know, it's just, I think another opportunity for you to, in a subtle way, demonstrate yourself as an expert, because I'm showing the activity. But really, the rest of the newsletter is not so much about real estate per se. It's community information. It's, again, items of value, things that I think that will appeal to information. I think that will appeal generally across the board.
Great.
And then you always slip in some little call to action. You know, so that makes the phone ring. So.
Okay. Can you give us just one example of a call to action?
So, as an example, earlier this year, everybody was getting their tax statements, you know,
Yes.
your proposed tax statement. So, you need some, you know, do you need help protesting your taxes? Do you need, you know, have you filed for your homestead exemption report? Call the office. We're happy to help you. We're your real estate resource, whatever. So,
Awesome.
something that, and again,
Thank
you're
you.
just asserting,
A reason
reasserting.
for them to call you.
Yes, right.
Great. Thank you.
What else?
On the, excuse me, on the email, and this is, the lead street, I guess, is going away in January, is that right?
Probably December 1st.
Yeah. So, do you use that at all, or?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It's not worked. That's probably why it's going away, just the way they had it set up.
It was due for a refresh, and we're going to get websites from homes.com, and I think it's probably a good thing. And it will have, they'll be free, the single page agent websites, but there will be add-on modules that you can pay for to generate leads and that type of thing. So I think it's time. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think there's, like I said, I think there's lots of opportunities for you to I know some agents that have been very successful with securing add-on services with Zillow and Trulia and some of those, and getting that page positioning as you log in. I just kind of maintain the normal stuff on there because I don't. It's just not my way. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't be effective for somebody else, right? I do a fair amount of search engine optimization though for my website. So when we start talking about your personal websites, as you get into that, that's kind of a whole nother vernacular. I guess I would just rather, if I was going to invest resources in digital marketing, that it be to promote me and not Zillow or Trulia or the 16 other agents that have got that zip code that will come up, with that optimized. So I think I'm a real proponent for personal branding, and I think that until you've developed an audience for your personal brand, you've got the best brand out there, which is RE/MAX. And so the more you can say, RE/MAX, the Woodlands and Spring, is the top producing RE/MAX office in the state of Texas. The state of Texas has 5 of the strongest real estate markets domestically.
Right.
Yada da 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 da. And, you can just hammer that home, and that makes people really.
Yeah.
That's the top office in the state.
That's what we're talking about, the farm thing. Let's just say that a house sells in that neighborhood. As long as it was a RE/MAX, the Woodlands and Spring house, maybe you want to get the listing agent's permission to do it, but there is nothing to preclude you from saying RE/MAX and the Woodlands and Spring just sold the property at such and such.
We just sold
We
it.
just sold it, and put your name on the card, send it out. I mean, anything you could, I would just say, the smaller the better, the more intensely you impound that small group to get started, then you can expand it to 100 homes, and it can just grow. I don't know if y'all know where the neighborhood Vicksburg is here in the West. It's outside of, that's the new home that I worked in for 6 months, and then it was Shenandoah, and then it was Oak Ridge, and it was, you can just pick whatever neighborhoods. And I love your idea of the brand new ones, because you're absolutely right. It's easier to be branded quicker in it where they don't know anybody anyway, and
Right.
so exactly, your name sounds as good as anybody's on a card somewhere, and you're telling them about the junior high team won some
I have a
competition.
question about if you discount commission, and did you do that when you were a newer agent?
When I started, I worked for a broker, and he didn't allow discounts.
Okay.
So, no, I didn't. I will
Okay.
not say that today in the upper end price range, you learn to get a feel for when, darn it, if you're gonna get this listing at all, and if it's a $600,000 listing, I might take it for 5 instead of 6. But especially under 300, you can't come out, can you?
No.
And what it costs you.
Okay, so you just decide at a certain price point that you're not gonna discount it?
And I'd explain it to people, say, well, so-and-so sold their house on such and such street, I understand they only had to pay 5. Well, that price point is a little different. I stress is that I'm gonna spend as much money and put as much effort into selling your home at $128,000 as I would a house at $458,000. And, it's just a matter of.
What about
What it
repeat,
costs.
if you have a repeat client that you do a lot of business for, and
That's
say,
different.
for example, okay, because I have one that bought a few houses for me, and then now they're turning around and they're leasing them, and they want me to do the lease for them. Do you not charge them for doing the lease?
Oh, no. I mean, you can't fool with leases unless you get a month's rent, right? I mean,
Yeah, because then you're like doing the leases for free, but I had heard somebody
no, I
doesn't do
don't.
that, doesn't charge them.
I don't,
Release.
I don't think that's the way to go in debt. Okay, It's hard enough to do
I just
leasing
thought I'd
as
ask.
it is. when you
I
don't get
haven't
one
done that,
month's rent.
I continue to charge for the leases,
Yeah.
but I was just putting that question
Now,
out
the
there.
thing, here's what I have done before. Let's say I have an investor and I can tell that they're gonna be buying more later, and I wanna, really respect.
Mhm.
I will say to them when they're buying that first home, since you're buying your investment home from me, I will handle getting a tenant in there for you at my cost. And then I explain how the system works. It's 1 month's rent for 1 year's lease, and it's prorated if it's a shorter term. We don't charge extra if they take a longer term. In my office, we don't. But, so the first, since you're buying this from me, instead of me charging you a full month's rent, I'm just gonna charge you what I have to pay the agent who brings us the tenant, which is half a month's rent. And that'll save you a half a month's rent. And then say it with a pretty smile now, after the first tenant, I can't keep doing that forever, but I want you to get started with as low out of pocket as possible. And you don't have to throw that out probably to them, but I have found it helps to buy their loyalty if you think they're looking with more than one agent at rental property. And,
Okay.
I've done the same thing. I work with a lot of investors, and I invest in real estate, so I think it's prudent. And if you're interested in working with investors, and that being a significant part of your practice, I just think it's a gesture of goodwill. And I'll follow up and say as well, because the other question you asked is, what if you have repeat clients? I think there's something to do with loyalty programs. That's what I want to call it.
Mhm.
Okay. And if you expect to have, we want to have that out of every client. We want every client to come back and buy and sell with us and buy and sell with us. And I think that there's an expectation in business that you reward that loyalty. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be commission based. There might be other items of value that you offer in your practice. Maybe they really need help staging the home, or maybe there's something else.
I do things like that, I bend over backwards for them, yeah.
I think that I wouldn't suggest that it's always about commission, but rather a benefit of service for repeat clients. So.
not really, you probably just make that decision on the basis of where you are every time, right?
I think I would suggest that it probably has everything to do with the business relationship.
Mhm.
I've certainly been at listing presentations where it was clear that the client's desire was to find the best agent they could at the least amount of money. And I'm happy to say with a smile that there are a number of agents in the marketplace that will offer discounted services and discounted commissions, and I'd be happy to provide them some recommendations.
Okay.
At which time they're usually chasing you out. They're usually chasing you and trying to figure out why you won't list the property.
Mhm.
But you've heard this before, and it's very effective. And I'd suggest you find a script that fits your personality and the one that you're comfortable with. But there's that saying, Mr. Seller, if I can't successfully negotiate my fee with you, how successful do you suppose I can be in negotiating on your behalf? And so find a way that trills off your tongue comfortably. But I would suggest that I have walked away from many listings where I felt like that was the biggest, that was the challenge, because I feel that if that's a critical part, and I'm not talking about somebody who's perhaps in dire financial straits or something like that, but somebody who's just really looking for a bargain.
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, that's often the same client who will be very difficult during the duration of your relationship, in negotiations, in repairs, and just kind of the tone gets set. And
You
learned
would
long
just
ago
rather
that
not work with them.
I learned long ago that if we're challenged at this point and we haven't began our working relationship, then I'm likely to be challenged on any host of other items and just feel like that's probably not the best fit.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than having a bad working relationship. So I'd rather recognize that up front. I've become proficient at recognizing that up front, thanking them for the opportunity, and inviting them to work with somebody else. Yeah.
But on that subject, I would say that if a buyer is, if someone is approaching me with the question of, if I list my home with you and then buy the next one through you, can you work with me at the commission side? And we almost always do that, don't we, Elizabeth?
I would
It's
say
And
standard
if they do
Again,
that,
well
cause I've
priced.
had that question,
1% off.
you give them 1% off on like the buying
one-
end?
No,
The one they're buying or the one they're
The
listing?
one they're selling, instead of charging them 6%, I'm just gonna charge 5%. There might be some rare occasions where you do something different, right? Big house, and you're not gonna have to do
I was
much
just
work to
wondering
sell
if
it
you
to
did it on the
them.
first or the second transaction.
Well, so some of this has to do with, whether are we buying, are we selling, and we've got lender involvement, we've got all kinds of other things. So another
Right.
scenario might be you're gonna list somebody's home, but they intend to build new construction. And you know that builder has got a $5,000 BTSA right now, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think you should look at each project, as I like to call them, wholly, and develop a reward program that seems to make sense. I wouldn't suggest that it's the same all the time, but
Okay.
I do agree that, as we said before, is that client loyalty is important, and you find a way to satisfy that.
And sometimes I've had people, they've already gone out and picked out the new home they want, and they want to list their home, but they haven't really go on contract for that new home. And, so you're not gonna have to do a lot of work selling them a home. You know, sometimes you have to be a little bit forceful about being the one that's gonna represent them on the new home. They don't realize, and that it's the same price to them whether you're their realtor or not. And so I try to, and sometimes it might not be, depends on the builder, but most of the time it is with our production builders. So, in a situation like that, I might say, well, listen, I know you've already done the work and that's the house you want, but let me represent you on the new home, because if I do that, instead of me having to charge you 6%, I could do it for 4.5%. I mean, if they see a financial reason to get you involved when you would not get involved anyway, then that's when I toss it out, if I toss it out at all. But a lot of times I wait for the subject to come up as a question before I just jump right in there. Or if it's somebody that's bought and sold for you several times, you're just gonna feel in your heart you wanna do something for those guys.
I would also suggest that if you're in a listing appointment and you're talking about those multiple transactions, that when you present your listing paperwork, you would also present your buyer's representation paperwork. And I write into my listing agreement, if I'm going to offer a discount, I've written into the special provisions of my listing agreement that the price has been reduced.
Subject to them closing on the new one.
So in other words, you've written maybe your 6%, maybe that's your standard fee, and then on the next line you've maybe written 5% or 4.5% as well as suggested or what have you, and then you've got that section that allows you special provisions, and that's where you're going to create some language that you're comfortable with that explains what that fee is, if there's a reduction. Okay, then you need to follow that up with at some point in time during the transaction, if ultimately you're under contract on that property. If there's going to be, you're gonna provide them a listing amendment because you've got to get a CDA done, right? So that listing amendment needs to reflect, did you go with the first option or the second option, right? You're gonna end up you're gonna end up having to define it, but that puts real clear, I think, in everybody's mind, every expectation, it's in writing, what options are available.
Okay, thank you.
What else?
Looks like we have a chance for one last question. Who wants it? Rod, you been quiet?
No.
Nope.
I got one.
Let's steal from Don on the front row.
Sorry. Throughout your careers, when you got started, or even at any point, do you have any thoughts or opinions on coaching, professional coaching? And or did you get a lot of help from your broker initially, or all self-taught? Or how did you progress?
Well, when I started in the dark ages, there wasn't any coaching, except your broker, and I had a very good broker. He gave me a lot of good tips of the years. I think the first coaching session I ever went to was by referral only, guys. He's been around a long time now, and he's probably pretty stale, but you'll probably still see business cards from agents that says on the back, I work for referrals, and I appreciate your referral, and they're really still doing the Mike Ferry that did that? Yeah.
Right, Buffini.
Yeah.
Star Power.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all been around.
Sweat Hogs with Century 21.
Ta-da! Like Woodlands Sweat Hog.
So they're good. They're very good if you can get one. I mean, I know there are agents out there that have a personal coach period that's real specific, but it depends on where your finances allow on that. But I always grew through those situations, didn't you?
Yeah, I think so. I've done both, Don. I've had some personal coaching experiences, and then I followed kind of the trendsetters, and you always feel like if you get a grain of something good out of it and you can incorporate it, then that's a good thing. There's so much education opportunity out there. Not only what Frank and Rel generate here. Remax University is fantastic. A lot of the big industry guys and talking heads are on Remax U, so that's easy. I'm a big proponent of education, so every opportunity I can seize upon working toward another designation, and I've got an alphabet soup behind my name after 20 years now, right? But there's a lot of it. I'll tell you a quick and funny story about it. May be funny. I think it's funny. Personal coaching. So about 10 years ago or so, I went to a Buffini program and got kind of swept up in it and signed up for personal coaching. And so, although all of these coaching programs are a little bit different, they're somewhat consistent in that they do a personality test and kind of figure out who you are, and then they assign you a coach. And over the course of the subsequent 5 or 6 months, and it's like, $7,000 for a year or something like that. After the first 5 or 6 months, and I'd gone through 5 or 6 coaches, they call me up and they say, we'd like to offer you a refund. They basically had determined that I was not coachable.
Wow.
And the summation of it is that, and it may well have changed. This is not a criticism against Buffini. It just happened to be that the coaches that had been assigned to me were largely significantly younger than I. May or may not have kids. May or may not have been married. May or may not have had previous professional experience. May or may not have. And quite frankly, I just felt
You
like
didn't feel like you were learning anything
I
from
just
them.
kind of right. I wasn't learning from them. I was rather teaching them, and so I think it's important. So the short answer is I think it's important to find mentors. So whether mentors are within the office or within the industry, is that somebody who's got something, who was where you're at now. And I just wasn't finding that. I wasn't finding anybody that had the kind of experience I was looking for to coach me. So some of the coaching programs, I feel like it's a little bit like calling Dell customer service. Is your, try this, or try, almost as though they're looking at a directory.
They
And,
are.
you don't need that. You really don't need it. Some of this is just very common sense. A
think
lot of
that-
these coaches are very Svengali-like, and that their delivery and their humor and all that is really kind of what you can kind of get swept. But really, it's all very basic. It's the same kind of stuff we're all talking about here today.
I really
So,
think the coaching that Frank's giving you guys as new agents is top notch. I don't see how that one meeting I went to, I got so many new ideas.
Come back anytime.
Okay.
So I would say that the ROI on personal coaching, I think there's a lot of resources out there. Is my own opinion.
Agreed.
Thanks.
And I'm uncoachable, but let's just.
All right, so Jackie, we're gonna get you out of here
Yeah,
on time.
yeah, I'm
All right,
scared. I'm
thank you both
sorry.
very, very much. And by